Welcome back to Deep Dive Stoic. In today's episode, we're diving into a powerful philosophy for navigating the chaos of the modern world. Stoicism.
Yeah.
You shared some fascinating excerpts that speak directly to taking control of your life from the inside out.
It's a philosophy that feels particularly relevant now in a world clamoring for our attention and often leaving us feeling adrift.
Yeah.
The Stoics offer a grounded approach to cultivating inner resilience.
Exactly. And for you, our listener, who's looking to absorb meaningful knowledge without feeling overwhelmed by endless information, this deep dive is designed specifically for you.
Absolutely.
We've distilled these sources to bring you the core insights that can be put into practice almost immediately.
It's about getting to the heart of it and making it applicable to everyday life.
Yeah.
Our mission in this deep dive is to explore 3 fundamental Stoic principles: focus, belief, and action, as they're presented in the material you've shared. We aim to understand how mastering these 3 areas can lead to what the Stoics considered the ultimate achievement: an unshakable inner strength and genuine personal freedom.
That's right. The ancient Stoics really emphasized these 3 pillars, focus, belief, and action, as essential for elevating oneself.
Yeah, they're really the cornerstones of Stoic practice.
Yeah. So let's begin with the first, focus. It sounds straightforward, but in our current environment, it often feels like a lost art, almost a superpower.
It truly does. The Stoics saw a clear connection between our ability to direct our attention and our sense of freedom. They recognized, as one of your sources put it, the tyranny of the unfocused mind.
Okay. A state many of us can unfortunately relate to today.
Sadly, yeah, I think that resonates with a lot of people.
Okay. So let's unpack this tyranny. The material we looked at really highlights how the modern world has, in a way, industrialized distraction. We're constantly bombarded by screens, pulled into online debates, subjected to a relentless news cycle. And even the algorithms we interact with seem designed to fragment our attention.
It's a deliberate fragmentation, very much engineered, I think.
What did the Stoics see as the fundamental problem with this state of constant distraction?
From a Stoic perspective, this constant barrage of external stimuli leads to a reactive existence. Our minds become conditioned to respond to whatever is loudest or most immediate, leaving little room for introspection or the ability to intentionally direct our thoughts. Instead of our minds being instruments of reason, they risk becoming, as another source cleverly phrased it, cluttered basements.
Filled with the noise and agendas of others.
Yeah, it's like we're living in someone else's mental attic, you know?
That resonates deeply. I often find myself fighting that urge to just reflexively check my phone.
I think we all do.
But the Stoic understanding of focus wasn't just about resisting these distractions, was it?
It wasn't, no. It was more proactive. It was about consciously cultivating a different way of being. The Stoics viewed focus as a discipline, something to be actively cultivated rather than passively hoped for. As Marcus Aurelius, a key Stoic philosopher, wisely noted, we waste our lives if we're constantly speculating about what others are doing. Ultimately comes down to a daily, even moment-to-moment choice. Will we take command of our own minds, or will we allow the external world to dictate our thoughts and feelings?
That idea of a constant choice is powerful. The sources you shared provided some really concrete examples of this in everyday life, that initial reach for the phone, versus taking a moment for mindful reflection, getting drawn into a heated online argument instead of engaging in and learning, or creative work, prioritizing immediate comfort over pursuing what we know to be truly important.
It's about recognizing those forks in the road, those little choices that shape our day and ultimately our lives.
Yeah.
And the Stoics understood that when our minds are unfocused, they become vulnerable, easily enslaved by the most superficial and often least meaningful demands.
It's almost as if we lose our sense of agency. Our mental energy, as one source vividly described it, becomes an open pasture.
I love that analogy. Available for anyone or anything to graze upon. True self-mastery, they argued, begins with the foundational ability to command our own attention.
So focus isn't just about the capacity to concentrate on a specific task for a period of time. It's a more fundamental aspect of our inner sovereignty.
Yeah, it's about reclaiming control over our inner landscape, if you will.
One of the sources referred to it as the muscle of the soul. I found that a really compelling metaphor.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Like any muscle, our ability to focus requires consistent training, careful honing, diligent protection from things that would weaken it, and deliberate exercise.
And in the environment we inhabit today, that training is more critical than ever because, as the sources point out, the world is relentless in its efforts to fracture our attention.
It is. It's a constant bombardment. through advertising notifications and the constant drumbeat of varieties.
Okay, so how did the Stoics actually go about cultivating this muscle of the soul? What were some of their practical techniques for developing and maintaining focus?
The material you provided outlines a very practical three-pronged approach.
Okay.
First, the Stoics advocated beginning each morning with intentionality. They suggested identifying and even writing down 3 things that genuinely deserve your focused attention throughout the day.
3 things. These weren't meant to be just mundane tasks, but rather guiding principles. Meaningful pursuits that would contribute to your growth and well-being,
Exactly.
acting as anchors in the day rather than just things to be ticked off a list.
It's about choosing what matters most and letting those choices guide your day.
That's interesting. It's about setting an intention for your mental energy right from the start.
Absolutely, setting the tone for the day, for how you want to use your mental resources.
And what was the second part of this practice?
Throughout the day, as those inevitable distractions arise, and they will, the Stoics were realists, they advised asking yourself a crucial question. Is this one of my 3 priorities for today? Does this deserve my precious mental space, or is it simply an unwelcome intruder, a thief of my focus? This act of questioning becomes a powerful exercise in asserting sovereignty over your own mind.
So it's like having a mental gatekeeper, constantly evaluating what we allow to occupy our thoughts.
That's a great way to put it.
And the third component of this Stoic practice for cultivating focus.
The evening review. At the end of the day, the Stoics recommended taking some time to reflect on those initial 3 priorities. Did you dedicate your attention to them? Were you successful in deflecting lesser demands that encroached on your day? This evening reflection serves as a crucial opportunity for course correction, allowing you to learn from the day's experiences and adjust your approach for the following day.
It sounds like a very active and conscious engagement with our own mental process.
It is. It's about taking ownership of our minds.
The sources we looked at emphasize that this kind of discipline, focus, has a compounding effect over time. By consistently directing our attention, we begin to reclaim the energy we once wasted on trivialities.
Right, it's like we're plugging those energy leaks.
Leading to a greater sense of power, more available time, increased inner peace, and ultimately a more purposeful and fulfilling life. Live through focused action.
Precisely. It's about reclaiming agency over that most valuable and finite resource, our attention.
Right.
Now let's turn our attention to the second core Stoic principle, belief. The Stoics held a very specific understanding of the nature and cultivation of self-belief.
Right. The material we explored started this section with that incredibly insightful quote from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters.
Ah, yes, a classic Stoic teaching, and so relevant to the idea of belief.
So it seems that for the Stoics, self-belief is deeply intertwined with our internal responses rather than being dictated by external circumstances.
That's the key distinction. They recognized that we have much more control over our inner world than we often realize.
But Stoics clarified that Stoic self-belief isn't about arrogance or empty positive affirmations.
No, it's not about some superficial self-pump-up. Instead, it's an earned and disciplined trust in one's own capacity, intrinsic worth, and fundamental responsibility for personal growth and self-development in a Stoic framework. Cultivating this self-belief is almost seen as a moral imperative.
Earned belief that really resonates. The sources we consulted talked about building this self-belief brick by brick through the accumulation of daily choices.
It's a beautiful image, isn't it? This idea of constructing a solid foundation of belief.
Can you elaborate on how the Stoics viewed this process of building inner confidence?
Certainly, the Stoics believed that true self-belief is constructed through the consistent accumulation of small, deliberate actions. It's about repeatedly choosing the path of challenge over ease, consciously resisting procrastination, and willingly confronting discomfort. These seemingly insignificant, often unnoticed acts of self-discipline compound over time, gradually laying the foundation for an unshakable sense of confidence in one's own ability to navigate life's challenges.
It's like each time we follow through on something difficult, we're providing ourselves with tangible evidence of our capability.
Exactly. It's about building a track record of success.
The material also highlighted the importance of honesty, of speaking our truth and confronting uncomfortable realities.
Yes, honesty with oneself is paramount in reinforcing this sense of self-belief. The Stoics viewed every decision we make as a kind of vote for the kind of person we aspire to be, consistently choosing integrity and facing reality, even when it's painful, reinforces our inner sense of self-worth and progressively shapes our identity.
So according to the Stoic, genuine self-belief isn't dependent on external praise or validation.
That's right. It's not about seeking approval from others. It stems from this internal track record of our own character and consistent behavior.
It's about knowing ourselves and trusting ourselves based on our actions.
Exactly. External validation is fleeting and often unreliable. In contrast, earned belief built upon the solid evidence of your own actions and choices is deeply rooted and far more resilient to the inevitable ups and downs of life.
And what specific practices did the Stoics recommend for actively cultivating this earned belief?
The sources suggest a simple yet remarkably effective evening reflection. Dedicate just 5 minutes each night to consciously reflecting on one thing you did during the day.
One thing
that you felt genuinely proud of. This doesn't have to be a monumental achievement. It could be a small act of kindness, an instance of perseverance, or a moment where you acted in accordance with your values. These small wins, consistently acknowledged, become the crucial bricks in the foundation of self-belief.
I appreciate that emphasis on recognizing the small victories. It's about building a positive self-narrative grounded in our actual experiences and conscious efforts. Okay, so we've explored focus and belief. Now let's delve into the third. Essential Stoic principle: action.
Right.
The Stoics were far from passive thinkers. They were strong proponents of purposeful action.
They were men of action, men of deeds.
The material we examined underscores that the Stoics were fundamentally men of deeds.
Yeah, they believed that philosophy without action was empty.
They viewed philosophy as incomplete, even meaningless, without corresponding action.
Exactly.
Seneca, another prominent Stoic philosopher, captured this perfectly when he wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality."
A profound insight and a call to action.
This highlights the Stoic emphasis on moving beyond contemplation and into engagement with the world.
Right, it's about bridging that gap between thought and action.
It seems the Stoics were keenly aware of the discomfort effort, potential for risk and fear of failure that often accompany taking action.
Of course, they understood those challenges.
They understood how these factors can easily lead to procrastination, often disguised as prudence.
Right, we can easily convince ourselves that we're being cautious, when really we're just avoiding taking the leap.
And result in us becoming mere spectators of our own lives, rather than active participants.
Yes, living a life of could-haves and should-haves.
The Stoics saw a direct correlation between our knowledge and our actions, viewing the gap between the two as a measure of our integrity.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Knowledge, as one source aptly put it, is merely a seed. It's action that provides the necessary water and nourishment for that seed to grow and bear fruit.
It's a beautiful analogy. Knowledge as potential, but action as the catalyst for growth.
And the consequences of this inaction from a Stoic perspective are significant.
They are. It's a life unlived.
The sources we reviewed speak of a life potentially filled with good intentions, but ultimately empty of tangible results, leading to a heavy burden of untapped potential and the quiet, persistent regret of what could have been, but ultimately wasn't pursued.
And that regret can be a heavy weight to carry.
The Stoics firmly believe that action serves as the indispensable bridge connecting our current self with the person we aspire to become.
It's the path of transformation.
Hesitation only widens that chasm. For them, philosophy wasn't just an intellectual exercise. It was a rigorous training ground for the real battles of life.
Right, it was about preparing for and engaging in the arena of life.
And training inherently demands execution, not just the accumulation of more theoretical information.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about putting what we know into practice.
There's no waiting for some mythical perfect moment to act either, is there?
No, there isn't.
The material we looked at really dispels that common misconception.
The perfect moment is a myth.
The Stoics understood that the only true moment we ever possess is now, this very imperfect present.
Right here, right now.
They recognized that excessive preparation and waiting for ideal conditions are often just thinly veiled forms of procrastination, the true enemy of transformation.
Procrastination is the thief of time and potential.
We essentially act our way into becoming the person we want to be.
Yeah.
Not simply think our way there.
Exactly. We become by doing.
It's about embracing the often awkward and messy nature of that initial step, sending that difficult email, starting that exercise routine, rather than being paralyzed by the desire for perfect preparation or the fear of initial clumsiness.
It's better to stumble and learn than to remain frozen in inaction.
Action is the very mechanism through which we directly engage with life.
It is. It's through action that we learn and grow.
It inevitably invites mistakes, but also opens the door to progress. Exposes us to failures, but also presents the potential for triumph.
Failure is a stepping stone on the path to success, in the Stoic view.
Inaction, on the other hand, essentially guarantees stagnation and the perpetuation of our current circumstances.
Yes, inaction keeps us stuck.
So ultimately, the key difference between someone who embodies Stoic principles and someone who remains in a more passive state is this fundamental willingness to act.
Absolutely.
To consciously choose to pay the often uncomfortable price of growth, to embrace failure as a learning opportunity, and to gain wisdom through direct experience, rather than mere contemplation.
It's about living life fully, not just observing it.
In the Stoic view, genuine personal growth and even greatness are not achieved through grand sweeping gestures, but rather through the consistent accumulation of small, deliberate efforts.
The small things done consistently add up to big results.
And what was a specific Stoic practice recommended for cultivating this crucial discipline of action?
Similar to the practices for focus, the Stoics advocated for a deliberate morning ritual.
Okay.
Alongside identifying your 3 priorities for the day, they recommended choosing one clear, specific, concrete, and non-negotiable action step that will directly move you forward towards one of those priorities.
One specific action step. The sources provided examples like committing to a specific duration of exercise or completing a defined task.
Right, something tangible, something you can check off.
The emphasis here is on simplicity,
Okay.
creating a direct, unambiguous link between intention and execution.
Yes, eliminating any wiggle room for excuses, leaving as little room as possible for excuses or rationalizations to avoid taking action.
These small, consistently executed actions, seemingly insignificant in isolation, accumulate considerable momentum over time.
They do. It's the power of compounding, fostering not only progress towards our goals, but also a profound sense of self-respect born from our own consistent follow-through.
It's about building that trust in ourselves, that we can rely on ourselves to do what we say we'll do. So to bring it all together, we've delved into these 3 key things that the Stoics championed the vital importance of cultivating. Focused attention in a world specifically engineered to distract us.
Right, a world that's constantly vying for our attention.
The profound power of building a resilient sense of self-belief through the consistent accumulation of small virtuous actions and the absolute necessity of disciplined action as the crucial bridge that translates our intentions and knowledge into tangible and meaningful results in our lives.
It's about bringing it all together, aligning our focus, our belief, and our actions.
And by actively cultivating these 3 core principles, focus, belief, and action, the Stoics believe we can forge a robust path towards genuine inner freedom and develop an unshakable sense of self-mastery in a world that often feels chaotic and beyond our individual control.
Exactly. It's about finding that inner citadel, that place of strength and peace within ourselves.
Well, this has been a truly insightful deep dive into these fundamental Stoic principles.
It has. It's amazing how these ancient ideas...
It's remarkable how these ancient insights continue to offer such practical and relevant guidance for navigating the complexities of modern life.
They do. They speak to something fundamental about the human experience.
Indeed. The wisdom of the Stoic philosophers provides a timeless framework for cultivating resilience, clarity, and a greater sense of purpose in an ever-changing world.
It's a philosophy for life.
Thank you all for being a part of this podcast with us. If this video helped you slow down and reflect, support Deep Dive Stoic. Like, subscribe, and pass it on. See you next time.